Hello and welcome to Future Squared. Stephen Hawking once said that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, so let's adapt. My name is Steve Glaveski, and each week I'll bring you conversations with preeminent thought leaders from a variety of fields to help you think in a multidisciplinary way, kick goals in your professional and personal life, and better navigate what is fast becoming a brave, new world. Future Squared is brought to you by Collective Campus, an innovation accelerator that works with organizations to unlock their people's latent potential to create more impact for humanity and lead more fulfilling lives. If you need help driving your organization's innovation strategy, visit collectivecampus.io. And without further ado,
come with me if you want to live.
Welcome back to Future Squared for episode number 354 on corporate startup partnerships. In this episode, I bring you two executives from the Bank of New Zealand, Connor Shelley, the head of transformation and innovation, and Lannon Durant, senior manager in BNZ's ecosystem and partnership development team. Bank of New Zealand recently partnered with Collective Campus to run a startup partnership program, whereby we scouted the globe to find, connect with, evaluate, and partner startups and scale-ups that could help BNZ solve specific business challenges. We unpack lessons learned from the program that can be beneficial for both startup founders looking to sell to large organizations, as well as corporate executives looking to drive innovation and partner with startups. With that, I bring you Connor Shelley and Lannon Durant. Welcome to Future Square, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Steve.
So for our audience who may or may not be familiar with who you gentlemen are, can we perhaps give them the 2,000-foot view, starting with yourself, Lannon, seeing as you've got the microphone in your hand?
Sure. So I'm
very surprised to know who we are.
Well, exactly. Hey, Lannon Durant from Bank of New Zealand, as Steve said. I am the Senior Manager, Ecosystem and Partnership Development within the Enterprise Partnerships team. 2,000 foot. So, I've been in banking now for around about 10 years at BNZ, for 9 of those. And we're part of the Enterprise Partnership team, as I said, that looks at third-party relationships and also innovation in the loosest sense of the term for the bank. So, yeah, that's kind of the 65,000 foot view.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lannon.
Yeah, cheers, Lennon. I'm Connor Shelley, so I'm the head of partnerships and ecosystem planning as part of the enterprise partnership team. So our team's a reasonably new team at BNZ, where we're looking to really see how we can transform BNZ from without by partnering with really cool digital type companies that can actually bring their cool products and services to our customers, so we can actually do better things with them. Yep. I've been in banking for over 20 years, so I'm a bit older than Lannon in that regard, but really been trying to actually transform and do things differently for the last 5 years. So I started off as a banker, but now I'm actually looking at how we can commercialise and digitise and innovate the experience. And for us, it's all about how we can provide better experiences for our customers so they can do better things.
Perfect. And just on that transition from being a banker for 15 plus odd years and now moving into this space of innovation and whatnot, which is, from my own experience, quite different. How have you found that transition, and what sort of older belief systems did you have to shatter in order to thrive in your current role?
Well, when I started at banking, I kind of fell into it. But I was always from the premises that banking's about actually helping people at its core premise. Yep. And it's actually helping people with their money. And as long as you understand that, what we are looking after is somebody's money or their business's money, and then you're really trying to make it better for them to actually unlock that, then you actually will go a reasonable far. And, transitioning from being a frontline role into actually, hey, how can we actually do better things? How, as an organisation, can we make it easier for our customers to do things better? It actually wasn't that hard from my perspective. For a traditional banker, it might be, because they're still focused about, hey, how can I do things in a manual way? I've got manual forms. I need to tick this box. Yeah. But from my perspective, it's actually been, how can we do things better for the customer? So it's really reasonably easy for me. But myself and Lannon, we're constantly talking to a lot of the other people in our organisation who've got the customer at heart as well, but they're so focused on the ingrained processes. Is how can we get them to change? They all want to do things right for the customer. They all got the right mindset, but it's how can we get them to do it in a faster way? Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think once you have, customer centricity at your core, then it's quite pervasive and that transition is easy. And what you said there kind of reminds me of what we often see in the public service, whereby if you approach a public servant with a problem, they will respond not with a solution, but with a process. And it's like, okay, you've got a problem, fill out this form. They may, again, want to actually serve constituents. Maybe that's why they work for a local council, but that system that they find themselves in oftentimes isn't conducive to the best thing for the customer. But I mean, we recently worked together on GoSMEGrow, which was a corporate startup matching program. And I think we proved that not only can large regulated organizations work with small companies, but we also proved that Aussies can work quite well with Kiwis.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief.
Yeah, there was a bit of a stretch, to be fair. No, kidding. It was actually really nice to work with you, Steve. And obviously, I think our values were aligned about how what we see as and what we want to get out of the program, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And I'll let Lannon explain the program because he's done all the hard work on it. But it was all about how we were really passionate about how we could actually transform our organisation to do things better for our customers. And GoSMEGrow was about how we could actually, and it wasn't actually about banking. It was all about actually how can we actually help SMEs with some of their problem statements, which is about, access to capital, how they can get better access to capital and how to get better access to advisors. And that's really the genesis for it from our perspective, was actually looking outside of banking to actually help them. Do you want to explain a little bit more about it?
So yeah, as kind of said, SME being a big focus for this program, and we know that banks are generally the last place that a growth stage SME should go for their capital, and it's as a bank and as an institution, I guess, that's really, as you say, has the customer at heart. How can we help them in a way that doesn't necessarily see us having to lend to them or to put them in that position? So, this program really set about trying to find companies out there, scale-ups, business model innovators, who have a solution in market or what have you that has a potential to meet that demand, to meet that challenge. And so, yeah, it was really interesting being able to see the types of different opportunities out there. And what was plainly obvious, I guess, towards the end of there was that, there's a lot of companies out there that are willing to do some good things in New Zealand as well, outside of the country. So, yeah, I mean, through that program, and we ended up speaking to and having a lot of them present to us companies that were doing some really, really cool things. And it was a good experience.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I guess just to provide a bit more context for listeners, the GoSMEGrow program was essentially about partnering BNZ's domain expertise, assets, networks, and resources with the talent, tech, and speed of your startups and scale-ups, both from New Zealand, Australia, and essentially across the world. And what we sought to solve in this program was two key challenges that you had identified, and I love the fact both of you have talked about the fact that you're looking to create this value for SMEs. This wasn't a BNZ first thing. It wasn't just about your organization, but it was about creating value for not just customers of the bank, but SMEs of New Zealand more broadly. And the reason you wanted to do that was for two reasons. One, only about 48% of New Zealand SMEs make it past their fifth year. And number two, many SMEs either fail to raise capital or make debilitating choices when they do. And that could be raising capital too early at a very poor valuation, giving away too much capital. It could be taking on too much debt. It could be signing a deal with an angel or a VC with terrible terms where they have some kind of liquidation preference, which means they might be working 10 years. And if they're successful, they'll have nothing to show for it. So what incentivized you guys to go down these two paths in terms of the challenges?
Funny thing is, it's for us, it's as an organisation, but also personally, both myself and Lannon and our team, we're really passionate and committed to actually how we can help New Zealanders be good with money, but also how we can help businesses grow. Yep. And in my own personal experience and working with, been in the bank for over 20 years, done some, did a commercialisation course at university, and actually talking to businesses, what businesses in New Zealand were struggling with is they don't understand how they can actually get access to some of these capital pools, or as you said, how they can get it in the right way. And we get a lot of customers or SMEs will come to BNZ and say, hey, I've got this great idea. Can you give me some funding? And we quite often will say no, because it's not the right point for a bank to provide funding to it. But they still could have a really good idea if they just get pointed in the right direction, or go speak to the right angel fund, or go speak to the right area. And I was just trying to help those type of people out. And then the other thing is we actually do want to really help these businesses scale out of New Zealand. There's so much great opportunity with some businesses and SMEs in New Zealand about if they need, all they need to do is look to, China or Asia or the US and other markets where they can look to expand, and they can become really big businesses and really successful. And, probably the most recent example of a New Zealand business going really, really big worldwide is probably Xero. And they've done an amazing job of doing that. So how can we get more businesses to do like that? And it'll be just the same for business in Australia as well. It's getting them offshore where there are bigger value pools for them to play in. And for us to actually try and help businesses do that is exactly what we want to do, and help them scale like that. So it was all about that passion about doing it. And, that was from my experience, from Lannon's experience, about what we saw was going on in the market, about that's what we could do. And for BNZ, the benefit for us is if we can grow more and more businesses, or help businesses grow, the New Zealand economy is going to get stronger. People will start to be feeling better off. So everybody wins. The economy wins. New Zealand business owners win. Businesses win. It's just a really good story for everybody, we think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's funny you should say that you get a lot of SMEs approaching the bank at the wrong stage of their life cycle. And speaking from experience, back in 2012, when I was over at Macquarie Bank and started working on my own web startup, I remember knocking on the door of Macquarie Capital and saying, hey, you guys keen on investing? And of course, this was pre-revenue startup. But Macquarie Capital only come in at 5 million plus tickets, which makes perfect sense if you understand their business model, which I do now in retrospect. But that's just an example of a naive young startup entrepreneur knocking on the door of all the wrong places to try and raise some money.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of places you could go to get that money, but also, as you pointed out, when it's quite right, it's making sure they get the right investor in as well on the right terms, and you don't give away too much. We don't have those oppressive terms, and that's what we're trying to actually help them with, because there's plenty of places that can help you with elements of this. It's just trying to link it all together.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information, but it's quite disaggregated at the moment, and you need to visit 20, 25 different websites, distill all this information and try and make some sense of it. That's part of the challenge now. And one thing you said about New Zealand-based businesses and Aussie businesses going offshore kind of links to the other challenge, which was around advice. I've worked with over 100 startups, and oftentimes they don't seem to appreciate the opportunity to do just that, and how it's not that hard. Nowadays, transaction costs online, whether it's outsourcing, whether it's automating, they've come right down, and organizations with 10 people can do what an organization of 100 did 5 to 10 years ago. And I don't think many young entrepreneurs or SME owners realize that.
Yeah, and it's also the markets and the value pools that you get from going offshore are so much bigger. So what you're going to get out of it is so much bigger. So New Zealand's only a population of circa 4 or 5 million people. There's only so many things you can sell to that population. You need to get offshore to Australia, which is even bigger. But even out of Australia, it's like, how can you get those access to the American markets, to the European markets, or the biggest market in the world, which is China? There's more people in one city in China than there is in the entire Australia and New Zealand. So it's like, how do you get access to that? And there's plenty of businesses that do that well. So it's like, how do you talk to those people who have done that well, who can actually help you with that? And that's what that whole point was about, is trying to get people access to advice when they need it. And so therefore they know, actually, hey, I want to export to China. I think I'm ready. Go talk to this person so they can actually help you with that. And then you can actually make sure you're ready, because sometimes you think you're ready, you get up there and you realise, oh my gosh, I'm not actually ready at all. I don't know what I'm doing or whatever, and you feel disheartened and you stop. When actually, if you talk to the right person, they can actually help you, put you on the right pathway, person, advisory firm, whatever it is, and then you can actually all of a sudden go in 3 months' time start unlocking so much more value for your business.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we found with all of our corporate startup programs, whether they were accelerators or matching. It's about connecting the startups with the right people inside that organization who can help them directly, or have relationships with people outside the organization who can help them. And essentially, if you use a map to navigate the world, but your map is very small, by partnering with an organization like BNZ, suddenly your map becomes so much bigger, and therefore you can go much further by knowing where the roads essentially lead to, I've found. So I guess a question then, the big question is, well, why turn to startups and scale-ups to do this, and why not do it yourselves?
As in personally yourselves?
As in BNZ create these solutions to help the SME ecosystem of New Zealand.
Well, that's a very good question, actually. So
that's why I asked it.
Yeah, well, you do ask for a good one occasionally, mate. Yeah. Well, from our perspective, is we've kind of realised that we don't have a mortgage on all the good ideas.
Yeah.
So yes, we could do some of that ourselves, but we thought we'd say actually. Being the partnerships team, but no, it's more about we thought that actually there's possibly some other ideas out there from people who are actually doing this already, and if there are, we want to work with them. So that's why we, the program was like put it out there to see, is there somebody doing this that we can do it very well? Can we partner them with? I've got a good idea that's actually helping solve this problem. Let's work with them and see what we can do.
And so, we're working certainly on the basis that the bank is not prepared to do everything itself, nor should it.
Yeah, we
just don't have the capability so much as the resources. And in some cases the know-how, I guess. Yeah. I was told not to say I guess, but I've just said that anyway.
We can edit out all I guesses.
Excellent.
Note to my podcast producer.
So, and as Connor said, there's plenty of companies out there doing the right things. So the program like this was really intended to find those gems, and I think we've managed to definitely come across a good couple there.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to seeing how we can actually to bring them up as well as how we can integrate that and help our customers too. Yeah. So it's an exciting little space to be in, really.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I guess it represents a bit of a departure from how larger organizations usually approach these things, the whole not invented here philosophy, but also trying to look at everything through the lens of lots of T's and C's. For example, I received an RFP from a financial services organization a couple of weeks ago to do very similar kinds of work. And in this particular RFP, there was a bunch of documents they wanted us to provide, such as evidence of quality control systems in place, reporting capabilities and options showing service trends and spend analysis.
Did you not send those to him? Len, I thought you did. Yeah.
Workplace health and safety policies, hours of operation, including support services and after-hours contact, implementation capabilities, privacy policies. It goes on and on and on. And one thing I found working with BNZ was there was none of that. And some may, with a traditional corporate lens, may say, well, that's just irresponsible. But in this case, it's about moving. As a startup, you can only move as fast as what's in front of you. And you essentially destroy the value of a startup if you're going to force them to do stuff like that, which is why with this RFP, we said, sorry, we're not going to respond to this. We don't think you're ready to work with us, and we don't think you're ready to work with startups.
So that's an interesting point, because Lannon said you were going to raise this one up. But I think the reason why you found it so easy is because that's what our team is designed to do. And obviously that's what Lannon did a very good job of, is that acting as interface to make sure that we only sent you the stuff that we felt was needed to get this across the line.
Yeah.
And that's what we try and do with our startups as well. So we obviously need to make sure that we're working with organisations that are capable, and they're going to take the same view and have the same values as us, but particularly the same view around protection of customer data. So if they can protect the customer data as much as we want to protect it, and look after it, and realise that it's all about how we can help the customer make sure they're getting good value and services, we will make sure we can alleviate some of those roadblocks and barriers that we still absolutely have to do, because reputationally we do have things that we have to do.
I mean, look, governance is important, obviously,
of course,
and when you've got a very heavily regulated company, so, institution like a bank, we've got responsibilities to not just our shareholders, obviously, but to the public and what have you. So you look, it can be quite suffocating in some cases, but to Connor's point, we really try and work within the I guess the scope of the particular project or the program that we're intending. So
we also realised that working with a large organisation, and in the context of the New Zealand market, BNZ's a large organisation. Worldwide, we're pretty small. But working with us, we are highly regulated. And we're highly regulated for a reason, is because we absolutely have to look after people's money. And that at core is making sure we do that in the right way. And because customers trust us with that, and we have to make sure we uphold to that. And that's what all the regulations are about, is making sure we're protecting the number one asset for those people, which is their money. And so we take that very, very seriously. But it's how we can work with some of these third parties who are trying to come up with this great process or system or new product, which they see as being actually able to enhance that and do it in a way that we make sure that we're protecting the customer's money as we go.
Yeah.
And that's what we try and do.
Yeah. And I think the key difference there is on one side of the equation, you're talking about existing business model, existing customers, existing ways of working, everything else. And it makes sense to regulate that because that is not changing. It's incrementally changing. It's already there. Whereas when we're creating something new, taking new products to market, new services, it's shrouded in uncertainty, and obviously we need to move quickly to get closer to something resembling product market fit. And in that case, the risks to the market aren't actually that big because these aren't, deposit holding mechanisms or anything like that. These are potentially new products that early adopters will try in a bid to improve what they do. So it's about looking at it through the lens of the right sort of risk profile and saying, okay, well, the risk profile here is low. Therefore, the processes, the policies, the systems, the governance structures should reflect that. And we shouldn't use the same governance we use for, say, an investment bank when it comes to early stage innovation.
I will say that if we'd known how bad you were at skiing, we would have thought the risk profile would have been a bit different when we did it.
Makes sense. Well, yeah, look, I was terrible at skiing. I actually took my time in Auckland to visit a snow planet, which was a lot of fun. And it was fun after my lower back recovered. I was literally lacing up my snow boots, bent over a chair, and I zipped up. Well, I pulled the laces together and my lower back just went. It took me about 20 to 30 minutes to recover so I could actually hit the so-called slope.
Well, next time you're in New Zealand, we'll take you to Queenstown. We'll actually take you some real skiing. Yes. See, after like an hour of doing that, you might be a bit sore, but at least you have more fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And at least I wouldn't feel like such a
There'd only be about 50 forms we're going to make you sign, though, to get across the line. But yeah.
Of course. And I probably won't be the oldest person at Queenstown either, like I was at Snow Planet.
No, there'll be Lannon. Lannon will be the oldest one there.
Fantastic. So I guess when it comes to the actual program. So we went to market, we got about 105 odd applications, of which we shortlisted 30. And now these 30 came from all over the world, UK. We had some from, I think there was some from the Middle East, Asia, the US, Australia, New Zealand. And ultimately, we had 10 pitching at Auckland's, at BNZ's head office in Auckland last month, which surprisingly went reasonably well, given that half of them were pitching remotely via Skype.
Yeah, no, definitely. We, I was surprised that the technology held up for a start, but
for a tech event.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, look, the quality of those coming through was definitely on show, and I think our judges were impressed with who presented. And so, like I said before, the companies that we've started doing some further work with have shown some really, really good promise there. And, they're not particularly far down the path themselves. So they're relatively early stage, but, that's a great opportunity for us to start working with them at the ground level as well. So, it's a good space. It's a good space to be in there.
Are we able to talk about one or two of the companies you've decided to work with?
Yeah. So, sure. We've chosen to do some work with a company called Cake Equity. Now they're a Gold Coast based startup, been in operation for about 2 years now. They're really keen to obviously do some work with us, and have actually started making plans to get to enter the UK market as well. Effectively, and I'll probably get shot for trying to explain this properly, but they've got a solution that enables SMEs and more medium enterprises to set up their own.
I can read out the bio from the site if that makes sense.
That might even be easier instead of me
Cake
fumbling my way
helps
through it.
all kinds of companies manage their equity. Whether you want to raise capital faster, manage your investors, or give your team ownership, better your business by using Cake.
Yeah. Look, they've got some really good potential there. They've got what appears to be a good company structure as well. Like I said, they're really keen, and so are we. So the other company, I won't mention just yet, but we're looking to kick off something hopefully in the next few months. But again, another exciting opportunity for us, and our customers. So yeah.
Fantastic. And I guess when it comes to working with them going forward, you'll be taking that same sort of philosophy in terms of keeping the barriers low, making sure they can actually move at pace and not be confronted with all sorts of bureaucratic inertia.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, that's what our team is here to try and run interference on. So we're going to basically, first thing we're going to do is actually have a co-design session with them, see what we can actually work on together. We're really excited about the cake opportunity. We think it's got as Lannon said, when the judges looked at it, it probably was, of all the pitches, the one that best fit one of the problem statement, which was access to capital. And we think there's a real good opportunity. We could help them with that and see what they can do to help New Zealand SMEs actually do better in that. Yep. There were a couple of other good ones as well, which, resources willing, we would have wanted to work with straight away, but we're going to have to wait until we can actually, do some things later on around those potentially. But but our team is here to run interference. We want to make it as easy as possibly can, so we can actually work with them, but at the same time addressing making sure that adhering to all the risks and controls that we need to put in place to ensure we're doing it right. Yeah,
and I think there's a valuable lesson in that for other corporate executives or other financial services organizations to make sure that they have something akin to a team or a process that is parallel to the core process, like what BNZ has now. But I imagine this isn't something that came up overnight, that perhaps it evolved over the course of months, if not years.
And it's still evolving, to be fair. Yeah. So, I mean, as we keep saying to our internal teams is, when you're dealing with a fintech, they may have like 5, 10, maybe 20 people. If they're really lucky, they may even further down that route. But they don't have like a team of 50 people in a risk department doing all these things. Yeah. And if they're just a founder and a few other people, they don't have that experience yet. So we have to work with them, and then, to your point, take a degree of business risk around, do we think the risk associated with it's going to outweigh what we're going to get out of it? And that's a bit of it is a horses for courses approach, which you have to take. And one thing I'd say to any other big corporate that that's looking at doing this is be pragmatic. Realise you're dealing with smaller organisations that don't necessarily have everything that you've got, but that doesn't mean that they're not a strong company that have got a good idea that could actually put all that stuff in place, because they're all going to come from the right place. And the ones that you talk to that don't have that at their core, you pretty much can identify straight away, and you can just give them a bit of advice and say, hey, you probably need to straighten this stuff up before you come and talk to a corporate. Because there is a bit, and I would also say to some of the fintech people as well, don't have a big corporate as your first customer, because you need to make sure that you've got certain things in place yourself to demonstrate you can do, you can got a market fit, but B, you got customers coming through the door. Because if you do rely on a big corporate, because even though we're reasonably quick and easy for what you were describing, we will still be probably too long for some fintechs.
Oh yeah,
because fintechs, you got to worry about your cash flow. So if you could still be waiting 3 to 4, 5 months, maybe even 6 months, by dealing with a big corporate. If you're waiting on cash flow, you can't wait for that. So you have to pick it and choose, and only start to deal with big corporate when you're ready to do it, and don't be your primary point, your primary revenue source to start with. That's my suggestion, my view. Because if you do, then you might be waiting for too long.
Yeah, 100%. I think any startup or scale up who's selling to large enterprise needs to cast a very wide net, because those sales cycles,
they take a long time.
Yeah, sometimes 6 months is quick. It could be up to 18 months in some cases, based on my own experiences in this space. And if you do focus on some of those smaller entities as you make your way up, then when you are selling to these large corporates, well, then you've got case studies, you've got evidence of revenue, you're in a financially healthier position than what you would be if you were just waiting for that first client to come on board. So the likelihood of closing that bigger organization is higher. And then also the likelihood of raising capital, if you need it, is higher as well, because you've got runs on the board.
Correct.
Yeah,
and it gives you that cushion, because you've actually got some cash flow coming through, or you don't have to rely straight away on winning this big ticket deal from the corporate, which is, because if you're waiting on that, then you could be waiting for a long time. And you're 100% right. By doing it the other way, you're going to be much better positioned to raise capital. You're going to be much better positioned to deal with a corporate at a certain point. So, I mean, and if you're a big corporate as well, you actually want to look for that too, because then you can actually see, this company is going to be around for a while, because we know we've got slow processes, so actually I can work with them. Because sometimes the very first thing we get internally, you get asked is, are they financially viable? Can we deal with them? And we have to answer yes to that, because otherwise big corporates generally can't deal with some of those companies. Yeah, and I think one of the lessons also for corporate executives looking to work with startups is also to just be transparent from day one with the startups, and don't upplay rather than downplay the prospects, and
don't seed the idea that potentially you're going to close a deal with this company in the next 4 weeks when really it's going to be maybe 12 months.
Yeah, for sure. And the same goes to the startup as well.
Yeah, of course.
Be transparent.
Yeah.
If you're thinking that you're not going to be quite there, or there is a challenge that hasn't come to the fore, then just be transparent with it. So yeah,
that goes to, I think that
anything,
applies to anything really.
To be fair, exactly, and life in general.
Life.
Yeah. I was telling someone the other day that they're wonderful and really they're not. So hey, maybe I need to be a bit more transparent. But
there you go, Ray Dalio's radical transparency. But we've talked about being pragmatic, being transparent, making sure you align your processes with the realities of the situation we find ourselves in. Are there any other key learnings that perhaps came out of this program or just out of the work you've been doing in the enterprise partnerships team over the last few years insofar as corporate innovation or corporate startup partnerships are concerned? Key learnings that our audience could benefit from.
Make sure you've got your priorities straight. I'd suggest, which sounds pretty easy, right? But as a organization, as a team, know where you want to go play. So as a big corporate, we know we want to go partner in a certain space, which the space for us is basically helping SMEs grow, which is a very broad space. But if you've got that, you can make sure you're lining up resources behind you when you need to get stuff done.
Yeah.
If you're not prepared to do that and you're out in the market saying, hey, we want to partner in certain spaces, but then it takes a while to get things done, you're kind of sending the wrong messages.
Yeah.
But again, it's just, as a fintech, don't sell vaporware. Make sure you've got the product there and ready to go. But when you come and talk to a big corporate, I know there's a temptation that they want to get it out there because I got such a great idea.
Yeah.
But if you go and sell vaporware and put it up there that you don't have it ready quite yet, that will get found out pretty quickly when you start dealing with the corporates.
Yeah.
And then you can burn your bridges. Yeah. And we have seen that quite a lot, so don't do that.
Yeah, that's the whole action bias that human beings often fall victim to.
Yeah, definitely get your name out there to say, I'm working on this type of thing, and I'll come and talk to you again in like 6 months once I'm ready. That type of marketing and that type of approach still is valuable, but don't go and sell a product that you haven't built yet. Try and sell it before it's done, I'd suggest,
Yeah, and I'd say it's one thing to pivot, but to pivot every 5 minutes and not have a hell of a lot of substance behind that or enough validation, if you like, just saying what you think people want to hear, then again, same sort of situation.
Yeah, that's, I think we call that the MVP hangover as well, where organizations or startups will try to take something to a relatively small market, half-baked solution, poorly defined problem. It sucks, but because you've exhausted all of your key contacts in this industry, then where do you go from there? Nobody wants to talk to you anymore.
Correct. And to expand on that, I'd say is like, with your business model, know how you're going to make money.
Yep.
Don't be afraid of making money. That's what you're in business for generally, but know how you're going to make money. And if you can't justify how you're going to make money to yourself and you can't quantify it to another organization, when you go to raise capital, the very first thing we would ask is like, how are you making money off this? How are we going to get revenue off this deal? Are you charging for your product, or are you charging for a subscription, or whatever it is? But then make sure you market test that as well to see if people are willing to do that. Because quite a lot of people say, we're going to charge this organization here to operate that. And you go talk to that other organisation that would never pay for that. So it's making sure they understand what their market is. And I know it sounds really simple, right? But people tend to get wrapped up in the idea that have got an awesome idea, but then forget about exactly how they're going to make that work.
Yeah. And oftentimes their ego prevents them from getting out of the building and testing it and finding out that they're actually wrong about their awesome idea. So they'll do anything and everything but do that, like put together beautiful PowerPoint slides and go and speak to every man and his dog, or every woman and her dog as well, at the expense of actually getting close to the product market fit and learning what they need to learn about their business model.
100%. And the other thing is, and we see this a lot in the New Zealand market, and I'm assuming it's similar in Australia, is don't be afraid to ask for advice. So as an up-and-coming fintech or whatever, don't be afraid to talk to somebody and ask for advice, because quite often that can actually help you take that idea to the next level.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who to ask, there's plenty of organisations that can help, or even ask a mate to ask a mate. But generally, try and ask somebody that's been in the industry or done something or done that, has got a bit of experience. But don't be afraid to ask for advice, because it's not admitting failure, because it's too often people in New Zealand think, it's either admitting failure or they're going to steal my idea. Where it's neither. It's actually recognising, hey, I can actually utilise somebody else's experience to help grow my idea. And all the best entrepreneurs in the world are the ones that actually bring other people in who've got better skills that can actually help them get their idea off the ground. And it's also mitigating their own risk on it as well. But by doing that, and that's one of the things I've seen probably over the last, particularly when we've been engaging more and more with the fintechs, is having that, asking for advice, also having that support structure around them so they can actually get it done right, is you're much more likely to be successful as opposed to not.
Yeah. Now, it's funny what you said there about advice. And I mean, going back to my own journey, 2012, what I did was I posted an ad on the Australian Institute of Company Directors website. And all I said was, I'm looking for non-executive directors for my office sharing marketplace platform. So it was like an Airbnb for office space. And on the back of that, I had about 30 meetings with either seasoned startup founders or executives in the commercial real estate space. Now, none of these people were really interested in becoming non-executive directors. I didn't even need one, but they were all happy to give up 30 minutes of their time to have a conversation. And they all asked me a lot of questions that I hadn't even considered. And so every 30, 45-minute meeting, whatever it was, to me, that was free consulting. All I had to pay for was the coffee.
Yeah.
So 30 meetings later, I was in a much more advantageous position in terms of my knowledge of the business model than I was before that. And so advice like that is free. It's out there. You just need to go and find it.
100%. And there's lots of people that are willing to give it as well and share that experience, because a lot of people actually are open to actually sharing their experiences so other people can grow their business.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit selfish in some regard, because you share an experience and that person does really well. You can also, at a later point, actually go and help them in a more formal matter sometimes. You've got to give them a gem and let them work on it.
Well, it's playing the long game, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's one part of it. But the other part of it is people just do actually generally like actually just helping other people.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of these ex-founders as well, or founders who spend time with up-and-comers, and to that point, they want to give something back, and they want to see the local ecosystem develop, and it's for everyone's benefit, really. And they probably do get the kudos. And it comes
it's funny. I was reading a book about Bill Campbell called $1 Trillion Coach, and he mentored the likes of Steve Jobs, Eric Schmidt, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, basically the who's who of Silicon Valley. And he was a CEO at Intuit for a number of years, and he made his money. And literally for the last 20 years of his life, he provided free coaching and mentorship to all these guys. And he didn't take any money, any stock, nothing, because he knew if he did that, that would compromise his independence. But he genuinely wanted to give back and help out. And so now there's this book that basically immortalizes his teachings. And there are a lot of people out there like that. They're not all Bill Campbell, but there's people who maybe built a startup that they sold for $5 million in Auckland, and now they can help younger kids coming up as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And the whole concept of someone's going to steal my idea if I share it. Well, chances are if you're not sharing it, then there's nothing to steal. And also, nobody's going to invest the next 3, 4, 5 years of their life making your idea successful. And if they do, good luck to them, but it's not about the idea. It's about the execution and who's going to execute better and faster.
Correct. And if they steal your idea, they won't have the passion behind it necessarily. And you hit it nail on the head. The execution of how you deliver that. That's the key. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure. And if people want to find out more about the GoSMEGrow program, they can do so at GoSME, that's SMEgrow.collectivecampus.io. But before we wrap up, we got to throw you into our 3-question lightning round. We're ready to rock and roll.
As long as you won't talk about the cricket.
All right. Question number 1. If you could work for any organization, apart from BNZ, any stage of the company life cycle, who would it be and why?
Any organization. I must admit, probably Amazon.
Yeah. At which stage of their...
At the very beginning of their journey.
Yeah.
Just because the amount of crazy innovations that they were coming up with, and they still do, and the free thinking they get out there, just to me, it's like it'll be an amazing creative place to work.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to go slightly off piste and say Interscope Records, circa 1990 actually. Yeah. Hugely influential part of the musical timeline.
Yeah, and Interscope did a lot of grunge.
But they also did a hell of a lot of rap, sort of urban as well. Yep. Not that I'm a huge urban fan, but just the way that it changed the genres hugely, and the people that were involved in it. I've just obviously started watching the Defiant Ones program on Netflix, and Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. Wow, incredible. Anyway, that would be me.
Fantastic.
Completely off what I do now. but that's fine.
No, that's cool. And I think the early 90s was a fantastic time for music. Question number 2. If you could ask anyone a question, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you ask?
Ooh. Good one.
Connor gets a bit more time to think about this.
Yeah. Who can... I'd ask, I'm going to stick with the music stream here, and ask Elvis why the hips. You know, what was it about what he was making and what he was hearing and doing that made him the way he was, you know? What were his influences? And we know he probably had some, you know, tiebacks to the to African American blues and jazz and what have you. But what made him? What was the appeal?
Okay.
It's a tough question though. So, you know, because there's so many different people around the world that you want to ask that question to. But probably Neil Armstrong, and what did it actually feel to look back at the Earth from the moon? They'd be the very first person to do that from the moon.
I like it. Yeah.
You know, just as a feeling to say, I'm the first person that's ever done that. You know,
it's funny. It would probably be humbling, despite the fact that he is the first person to walk on the moon.
Correct, and it would have been, he was the first person, and he was, you know, but he was the person of thousands of people that actually, you know, the culmination of actually getting to that point. Yeah, you know, so it's. And I know there was an American achievement because they got it there, but in reality it was a world achievement. But yeah. And it's probably because I was just watching that. It's been like, was it 40 years or 50 years? Or
1969, I think it was.
So it was quite recent. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think we often discount the fact that every great achievement just builds upon what came before it.
Yep.
You know, Einstein didn't come up with the theory of relativity on his own. That was built upon the work of Isaac Newton and everyone that came before him, Galileo and everything else. And nobody operates in a vacuum, essentially.
Theory of evolution, Darwin was just like taking other theories that he got and pulling it together as well. Exactly. So no, you're right. Everybody just keeps evolving and adapting.
Who are we in the future?
Yep. Fantastic. Well, the lucky last, gentlemen, this is all about rituals and routines. What do you do to stay on top of your game? I know, Lannon, you just came off a 36-hour fast.
Yeah, that's probably didn't put me on top of my game as such, but so for me, to stay on top of my game, I have to exercise. If I don't, I'm a horrible person to be around. My wife can attest to that. Eating well and exercising for me.
Fantastic. Yep. The holy, duality. I was going to say the holy trilogy. The other one would be sleep.
Yeah, that is right.
For me, it's kind of like laughter. You know, just being around good people, having a good time, you know, and enjoying yourself and you know, that's where I get my energy, from being around people. So I do not get energy from sitting in a room by myself trying to come up with an idea. I'd rather be bouncing off the ears of people and having a good time. So for me, that's how I re-energize myself and get the good energy. So it's
Fantastic. Yeah, it's funny. You know, I consider myself more of an ambivert, so not quite full on extrovert, not full on introvert. But when I do spend time around people, like most recently, I was at a 3-day, they call it an unconference called Space, which basically was up in Byron Bay in New South Wales along the beach. Lots of creatives, entrepreneurs, artists, writers, you name it, musicians coming together for 3 days of conversations. I was literally buzzing for about a week after that. And it was just this natural high that was like something else that maybe I shouldn't talk about on a podcast, but it was like this just natural buzz, and it just came back to people. Yep. Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure. Is there anything you'd like to share before we wrap up by way of links, URLs, anywhere we can point listeners?
Yeah. Hey, we've got a pretty interesting website that we could point people towards, bnzvap.co.nz. Now that provides a bit of detail of our particular team and the venture fund that we sort of manage for BNZ. So worth checking out. Needs a bit of updating, admittedly, which we'll get onto very soon. In fact, by the time this goes live, I imagine it has been updated. So otherwise I can't think of anything else.
Cool.
Thank you very much for having us, Steve.
No worries.
Really appreciate it.
And thank you for running the program as well. It was really enjoyable working with you. So
likewise.
We got a lot out of it. So
Fantastic. Well, we'll add your LinkedIn profiles to the show notes along with the bnzvap.co.nz link for our listeners. And until next time, Future Squared is out. Hi guys, Steve again. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to receive a weekly email from me, complete with reflections, books I've been reading, words of wisdom, and access to blogs, ebooks, and more that I'm publishing on a regular basis, just leave your details at futuresquared.xyz/subscribe and you'll receive the very next one. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, take a minute to like, share, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It goes a long way to giving the podcast the exposure it needs so I can continue bringing you guests and conversations of the highest caliber. You can catch me on Twitter at Steve Gliveski and on Instagram at TheSteveGliveski. Until next time.
Hasta la vista, baby.